On this week's episode, the trading card industry just got a lot more dangerous. Could a new streaming power be in the making? And what is the best Star Wars fan project ever? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. On this week's episode, the trading card industry just got a lot more dangerous. Could a new streaming power be in the making? And what is the best Star Wars fan project ever? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows, and if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, our awesome array of radio stations that play our shows around the world, and we cannot thank you enough for doing so. Or if you can, go ahead and support us at popculturecosmos.com. It is truly appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He's our own legendary edition for Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out what he's doing today on his shows. Is it now defunct?
Not yet. So we're getting ready to do one last round of topics on Topicocalypse, and then it will be defunct. It'll be gone, and it'll be archived, and they'll surface again eventually. But I might. It depends on if I decide I want to do something new or not.
You can catch him today on his almost defunct show, Topicocalypse, and of course his other show, the Super BS Gamescast. I just wanted to make sure. Plus his great book, which you can get today at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, entitled, Congratulations, You Suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. The Josh Effect Legendary Edition is here in the house. What's up, man?
What is up? Yeah, I bought it, and I was really excited to play it, but haven't had a chance yet. I know you got your copy there.
Yes, mine is all loaded up and ready to go, but I have some impressions of what other people and how they're reacting to it, which are very interesting to me, and I want to share that later on. But yes, I know you're still getting through Resident Evil Village, and you wanted to go ahead and share some thoughts. So before we get into Mass Effect Legend, Disney Plus, the merger talks of a great streaming giant, possibly Star Wars fan stuff, and so much more, I know there's something you want to go ahead and talk about in regards to a deep dive on Resident Evil Village. So before we get to all those great topics coming up later in the program, you've got the floor, my friend. I also spent a great bit of time looking at what is going on with Resident Evil Village. Again, we had a lot of comments on it last week, but I want to hear your thoughts on Resident Evil Village even more.
So I'm getting close to the end. I got out of all the stuff that was showcased at all the game events. The stuff with Lady Dimitrescu and the castle and all that good stuff.
She's become an internet fascination, just to let you know.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I've been seeing the mods of people like putting her in lingerie and
exactly
outfit. Yeah, I know. I saw there's action figures of her too. Like she's interesting. Like I wouldn't necessarily say like she's creepy, but she's just like fascinating. But
she doesn't spend as much time in the game. She's not in the game as much as people think.
No, and that's that was a big deceiving thing, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but they kind of like advertised her as being the main villain.
Yes.
So after you have your confrontation with her, she has these 3 daughters, and they can they turn into flies and then return into people, but she's a vampire, and she's a big tall lady. After you have your first run-in with her and you kill her first daughter in the game, she has claws. She's like Freddy Krueger. She has these claws, and she just kind of like roams around the house, kind of like Mr. X did in the Resident Evil 2 remake, and I think Nemesis did that in Resident Evil 3 remake. So that seems to be like a running theme with Resident Evil games now, is that you have somebody who just like kind of follows you around through the whole game. luckily with this, with her, she doesn't really follow you. She only follows you around until you have to have that like final confrontation with her. But that being said, like I had some more thoughts I wanted to share, kind of go into it a little deeper than I did last time. Obviously, like the Resident Evil, what they do with the trailers, they did a great job. The trailers and gameplay did a great job of like not letting you really like see what the game is about. They kind of show you like where you are, what you're going to be doing, what are some of the foes you're going to be encountering, but they don't really give much away about the story. And I think that is a big positive for me because I like to be surprised when I go into things. When you talk about Marvel films that I haven't seen yet, I always put you on mute so I don't have to like. So,
are you sure you don't do that all the time, anyways?
So that being said, when it comes to
think you do. I think you do.
I mean, sometimes.
What did you say, Gerald? That's why you said, huh?
Yeah. Sometimes I try to multitask sometimes and it doesn't always work out. All right, so positives. You don't have
the bad
to
thing is my wife says that too a lot. I don't know, does that mean something?
Yeah, I know, and I say that to my wife too, and she just, kind of. I have selective hearing sometimes,
Huh?
Yeah. Okay, so everyone talks about Resident Evil 7 a lot. That seems to be like the fan favorite. Resident Evil 6, if I remember correctly, was like one of the worst reviewed games of all times. I did not. So I played Resident Evil 5. Didn't really play a lot of Resident Evil 6. I played the demo. Wasn't really a big fan. Resident Evil 7, it took some coercing by some friends to get me into that game, and it was terrifying. It was scary. It was, it was very anxiety driven, and I did enjoy my time with it, but it was interesting because it felt like it existed outside the Resident Evil universe.
Do you think that stunted though the sales because it was so concentrated on the horror aspect of the genre?
So I've heard mixed things. Like I've heard people saying that, yeah, it doesn't really feel like a Resident Evil game, and then other people are like, this is the excuse I've been waiting for to go back into the Resident Evil universe. So there's everyone has a side on that game. For me, like it was nice, because like you play enough Resident Evil games, it gets to the point where it gets old, right? Like the whole thing with the zombies and the Umbrella Corporation, and like they just had all these characters that they didn't, and this open story thread that they didn't really know what to do with. And for that reason, I was kind of getting burnt out. And I got back into Resident Evil 7, and it felt fresh. And then they kind of like brought Chris Redfield in, and he was they kind of tied everything back into the original franchise, which was a pretty interesting concept. And then you open up with Resident Evil 8, and it takes place in the aftermath of 7, right? Like you have your family, you rescued your family. They're dealing with the trauma of what happened in the last game, but they're living in Europe now. And so you have this scene where like the wife doesn't want to talk about what happened. Ethan keeps trying to get her to like talk about things and get over it. And you have the baby Rose is
Ethan Winters, by the way, to everyone
Ethan
out
Winters, there. Yeah, and the baby, they have a kid now, and the kid, you walk around the house and you find like clues about like what's going on with the kid. Is the kid, since the kid was born of this mom who had been the test subject of this cult, does the baby have anything wrong with her? And then all the papers you find leads you to believe not. And then the big event happens that sends the game not spiraling, but like projecting forward into full motion. I don't want to give too much away there, but just to let you guys know, you don't have to play Resident Evil 7 to enjoy it. Like it's one of those things where in the beginning of the game you can see they put together like last time on Resident Evil, and you can kind of watch a recap of the last game. So yeah, back to the beginning of the game, I feel like the game is practically flawless in the way that they set up the story. It creates a lot of intrigue, and it drops a lot of breadcrumbs that you want to unpack more of it. Like you want to know, okay, well, if the baby's fine, why does Chris Redfield and his new Umbrella Corporation that he's created, why do they want to run their own tests on the baby? Why does the wife not want to recall what happened? Why is Chris Redfield here doing the things that why does he just show up and do the things that he does? Like it creates a lot of intrigue, and it's it goes from like 0 to 100 miles per hour within the blink of an eye. And I think that is absolutely fantastic because it doesn't make you do a lot of unnecessary things in the beginning like most games do, where you're trying to like figure out how do you play, how do you turn left, how do you turn right, how do you pick items up. Like, you don't have to do that. It just gives you a brief little pop-up on the screen, then it goes away. Okay, next thing that I want to talk about is the Transylvanian myth in Resident Evil. Like, it might not feel like Resident Evil to some people, but it's nice to have a variety of enemy types. You go back to the earlier Resident Evil games, like, you have zombies and different like types of zombies, but they all kind of did the same thing. So with this one, you have your lycans, you have your vampires, your werewolves, and they all do different things. They all attack in different ways, and
That
it's
is one of the highlights of this game. Just wanted to let you know, because
Mhm.
7 was criticized, or at least one of the main criticisms of it was the lack of variant types. And 8 is, Village is that and then some. And I know we mentioned that last week, but I know that the variety makes for me at least a more enjoyable game.
Right, and it is enjoyable because you have to do kind of like in Doom, where you have to like use different weapons to take on different enemy types. Like in Resident Evil, you can use the same gun over and over again, but it helps to cycle through what you already have. Like a shotgun is going to annihilate a Lycan, right? Especially the armor types. You have a sniper rifle, and that does wonders against the flying vampire crow things. And then in the dungeons, you just have your shotgun, and it's such close quarters combat that the shotgun just will immediately take out any enemies that are standing in your way. But if you get bit, it just they do take some damage from you. So that with that being said, like, I guess I want to ask you the question now that they're incorporating monsters, and I just got to a part where they're kind of like incorporating Umbrella Corporation, right? Like, they're tying it into the other Resident Evil games. But with this introduction of these monsters, do you think that this opens a door for a Devil May Cry Resident Evil crossover?
I'm sure that's something that's on their minds at some point. I think, when you're keeping going, DMC, DMC1, DMC2, DMC3, you keep on going with DMCs, and then you keep on doing the same thing with Resident Evils, Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and now we're up to 8 on Resident Evil, and DMC's what, we're 5? We're quite a few ways in with those as well. I think it's inevitable that you'll be at least combining those different assets from each, because I was going to ask this and tie this into what you're talking about there is the Redfields, because we have Chris Redfield as a major part of this game. The Redfields as a whole, is that something that maybe has been overplayed out? I mean, are you still, when you see a Redfield on the screen, does that still drive you forward as far as for your progression, or is it like some people have been saying that, oh God, it's the Redfields again? I mean, they can't come up with any more original characters or protagonists, whatnot, but the Redfields have been such a mainstay as part of the Resident Evil whole thing. It would be great to see them interjected into somewhere else, like a DMC, Devil May Cry universe, and some of the members of the Devil May Cry universe cross over to the Resident Evil and create a game from there. I think that would probably be better, would be a way to freshen up, because I think there's some parts of the Resident Evil whole genre that may be a little bit played out by this time, because you've seen it not only in 8 different Resident Evils, you've seen them in how many countless of movies. You're also going to see them upcoming in whatever Netflix is going to be doing with the Resident Evil IP coming up very soon. So it's going to be something, or Sony and whatnot. But I'm just concerned that there's going to be too much repeat. So that's why I think I like Resident Evil Village, is that even though it does have those, like you said, familiar influences with the Umbrella Corporation and the Redfields, it has enough new in this different setting to make it stand out.
Yeah, so Ethan is definitely like the best protagonist this franchise has featured so far. Like, I love Leon and Chris Redfield has been take it or leave it for me, but like Chris Redfield is kind of a stale character, and that's why I've never been a huge fan of him. I like Leon Kennedy is cool. I thought Jill Valentine was an interesting character. Going back to that though, with like Ethan, like you actually he has something on the line. Like, we saw his humble beginnings and we saw what he was fighting for. Like, they did a great job of humanizing him in a very like dehumanizing world. And so that's why like I like I think he's such a great protagonist, and he's one of those people like he just does what needs to be done. He all this stuff that's happening in the game is like sick, and you have these times where he's like, what the F is going on? Why are people doing this stuff? And then they're like, okay. So he has this conversation with the Duke, who I think is a great character because much like in God of War, they take the shopkeeper or the merchant and they incorporate him into the story. And I think
Moves
that's
around quite a bit for someone of his size.
right, yeah. And he's just sitting in I don't know, reminds me of like in Pete's Dragon, the like apothecary cart where the guy was selling them stuff. But he has an interesting conversation with him, and the Duke's like, well, this is this, and I'm not going to spoil things, but he goes, this is what's happening here, and this is what you got to do. And Ethan's like, why in the world would someone do something so weird and messed up? All right, fine, I'll go take care of this. Like he does what needs to be done, and he doesn't like whine about it. He's not like I don't know, broody like all the other Resident Evil protagonists are. He just kind of takes up the mantle and takes care of business. He gets his hands cut off a lot in the process, but that's one thing that Capcom's never really shied away from, is being aware of what they are and playing to their own advantage. So I mean, I definitely think Ethan, I'd be curious to know like if you got a chance to play the game, like what you thought of Ethan as a protagonist. But
well, I've watched a few hours now of it, and Ethan's been a very interesting character to go behind, a very sympathetic character to lean on. Like I said, when it comes to Chris Redfield, it comes on the screen. Take it or leave it. Leon Kennedy, Jill Valentine, the whole nine yards. When you talk about the familiar characters that we've seen over and over and over in Resident Evil, the whole series. Now you have Resident Evil Village coming out, which is the 8th iteration, plus all the movies and all that. It gets a little bit tiresome. So I'm thankful that at Capcom, they went in a different direction. Yes, they still have some familiar elements, and of course, Chris Redfield is there, but going and traveling through this game through the eyes of Ethan makes it so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, and like it's always nice too. I mean, they like tried to do this. They've tried to do this in other first-person shooters, whether it's Halo or actually, I don't know a lot of like story-driven first-person shooters anymore. Wow.
I mean, you could probably say Gears of War has taken it into a different direction.
Right. Yeah, but they're third person. But yeah, no, like they do a good job with Ethan. Like he has thoughts, he has an inner monologue, and so like he tries, as he's doing all these things, he tries to make sense of why he's doing it. And like I have appreciated that, because I have often had the same thoughts as Ethan while I'm playing the game, and all of a sudden he says, I'm like, oh, okay, so it's not just me being crazy here. Okay, so going on to like exploration, I'm only going to stay on this for another few minutes, but like going on to exploration, like it's not, the game is not interesting, but it's like it's not an open world game, but it feels very open, but it also doesn't feel like there's too much of it. Does that make sense? You know how I said with like Assassin's Creed, there's this big open world and it just there's too much in it. This game feels like it has just enough.
And you've played it with the new DLC as far as the Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
Oh, no. I have not played the Wrath of the Druids yet.
Okay, and you've done over 100+ hours on it. So that's just giving everybody an idea, once again, of how much you've invested into it. Yeah. But with Resident Evil Village, it's one of those nice creations where it's, like you said, you can explore, but you don't feel like it's a whole bunch of it's that wide open type game where there's nothing really much to do. So you have all the space, and then there's not really much to do in it. So it looks like it's a linear game, and it's not a linear game, and I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, and what's nice about this, like, and I know anyone out there who has played Resident Evil games before, like you find keys, right, or you find like items that go certain places, or you're like, oh hey, I need to find a crank here so that I can open this up. Like there's still a lot of that, but it's easy to get back to the places where those items belong. Like in Resident Evil 7, I guess one thing I really disliked about that game was that it took forever to go back to certain places, because you had to go through and fight enemy types or keep running into the guy that's following you through the whole game. In this one, you're like, oh, hey, there's this wheel, but oh yeah, that's right, there's a well right around the corner here, so I'm going to go back to that well. I might have to shoot a couple werewolves on my way there, but it's really not a hassle to go back to it. And that's something I appreciate, because again, like I sank 113 hours into Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's nice to be able to play a game where I don't have to like spend an extra hour to go back and do a side quest.
Yeah, and I can tell you're enjoying it, because I know you wanted, when you go ahead and message me that you want to go into detail about your thoughts on Resident Evil Village, I know that you're getting a lot out of it, and it's not because of any angst or anything like that. I can tell when you're really enjoying a game, so I'm glad you've had a great time with it so far.
Yeah, yeah. And then before I hit my like two or three negative things, I just want to say, like, the boss fights in this one, they did a great job of like keeping it interesting. Like, most of the time in games, like, you have these boss fights and you're just like running around the same area doing the same things over and over again. In this one, like, I fought Lady Demascuro, and she goes through her different like transformations, and then she kind of like, you have to run around a building shooting her, and then all of a sudden her like dragon form runs into the tower, and you're trying to like, you have to start going up the stairs. Like, the boss fight was constantly moving, and that's something that, like, outside of like a God of War game, is I've never like experienced before. And so I think that was really cool, because it made me interested. I wasn't just trying to like shoot hide, shoot hide, shoot hide. Like, it was something like, oh, I gotta shoot it, oh, I gotta hide, oh, I gotta go up these stairs, I gotta run backwards, I gotta make sure I'm hitting her with my shotgun and not hitting the wings. Like, it was a very tactical boss fight, and I appreciated that, because Resident Evil doesn't really do things like that.
Well, I know there's some issues that you have, some slight concerns, but I know your game so far has been mostly an enjoyable experience, but some caveats that you might want to warn players about before they head into Resident Evil Village.
Okay, so like all Resident Evil games, there's ammo scarcity. They do have a great crafting system where you pick up items and it lets you like make ammo and health stim packs, or not stim packs. Well, I don't know. I don't remember what they call them in the game, but you
The
can't
health
pick up
packs.
the health packs. You can't pick up items and craft things. The shop has ammo, but you only get to do it like once per level or per zone. Once per encounter with the Duke. So that's kind of a pain. So that being said, like, it's not one of those. They are a little more sparing on ammo than they usually are, but it's not to the point where you can like just go in guns blazing into everything. Other thing, like I said, the open world is nice, but you do have to do a lot of backtracking if you find like the wheel crank and all that, and you want to go back and get things out of the well. There are different types of there are different Lycan enemy types. One of them has armor, so you really gotta strategize how you kill some of these enemy types, because you could end up like chucking a grenade and having it bounce back and hitting you. So you really got to like be aware. So if you're playing on like it with your HDR settings on, you should be all right. But if you're someone who plays like dark games during the daytime, you might have a little trouble like recognizing what enemy type is what and how to kill it. My other thing is, this thing's kind of combined, is you can't jump, and because of the lack of jumping, it makes it really hard, or it makes it really easy to get stuck in hallways. So we have Lady Demascuro following you around, with her long claws, and she traps you in a hallway. Like, you can't, that's it. Like, you have to keep on like going up on the side of her and trying to like edge yourself through, and she can easily just kill you in that time. So if you get stuck in a hallway and there's like no doorway, the lack of jumping makes it really hard to get by her. So that was, I haven't gotten killed by her, but I came very, very close to, because I was stuck on a balcony and she was just sitting there swinging at me. So I didn't really, it was a little difficult and irksome. So if they just had a jump function on there, that would be a lot easier. But other than that, really digging the game so far, almost finished with it. So, when I get to the end, I'll kind of give my final thoughts.
All right, but you are enjoying it so far for the most part. It sounds very intriguing. Again, I've seen quite a bit of it myself, and I'm very impressed. And I said to you before that the facial animations are better than virtually any other game I've ever seen.
Yeah, they do they do a great job of especially the
The
stuff with, like,
movements as a whole, the movements,
Mhm.
from running, walking, the whole body movements and human interactions are just extremely well done.
Yeah, and like Lady Demascaro and her daughters and the Duke. The every it's a very well. There's a nice coat of paint on this game.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a great time for Josh so far, but if you have any thoughts on Resident Evil Village, we'd love to hear them as well. Please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. But before we hit the half-hour break, I wanted to go ahead and mention that Mass Effect Legendary Edition, as you can see with Josh, and you can see with me, we already have our copies of Mass Effect Legendary Edition on hand, and we're going to be hopefully showcasing them very soon. At least I will try to on our Twitch channel, but I know Josh is hopefully going to be able to showcase that as well at some point in time. But I wanted to note to you that with Mass Effect Legendary Edition, it seems like it's 2007 all over again, because people are becoming fascinated with Mass Effect. You and I had hoped for this to be revitalized, this whole IP, this whole series. You and I hope for a return to the galaxy of Mass Effect in a better fashion. It looks like BioWare and EA have struck gold with something you and I knew would strike gold if they just went ahead and did it. They went ahead and did it finally. It's now out in the wild. A lot of people are getting it. A lot of people are reacting to it. And for people who have not played it, right now, it just seems to me, because the game is so long, people are talking about Mass Effect. They haven't gone into Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 3. They're playing it, for the most part, the right way through Mass Effect. And with all the upgrades that it's gotten and received, because Mass Effect has been the one that they worked on the most at BioWare, it looks like it's been a job well done so far.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard any negative things. I haven't actually read any reviews about the game at all. So, I mean, I'm sure you'll speak to that in just a minute. But yeah, I mean, from what I have heard from people who've actually played it, like, it is a nice excuse to go back to the Mass Effect universe, especially like in this time where games have been a bit dry, meaning like not a lot of games have come out. Like, it's nice to have this excuse to just kind of sit on your couch and be transported to someplace completely new. And while it's not a remake, as there seems to be some confusion around that, it is a decent remaster, and I think it runs at it doesn't do 60 frames. I think it does like 30 frames per second.
It does even higher on the right format. I mean, if you have it depends on the specific individual system that you have. I mean, there's actually places where you go with the different readouts, or you can go check EA and BioWare site, and it should have the actual specs for each and every individual system that you have, because it varies across the board from not too bad, 30 frames a second, to I think upwards of 120 to 240, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, geez.
Depending on what you have. I mean, if you got a powerhouse PC, it's going to treat it like butter, very smooth.
Right.
Whereas if you have like just a standard Xbox One or PS4, it may be a little, not quite as fast, but 30 frames per second should get the job done.
Yeah. Yeah, well, again, like, I've seen it running, and it does look good. I haven't had the chance to play it myself, but I have, a lot of my friends who grew up on Mass Effect are saying they're really enjoying their time with it. You had said there's some controversy over it, right? Over the there's like a split on like reviews. People are saying interesting things. Is that what you're saying?
No, I never said anything like that.
Okay, all right. Well,
no, I said for the most part, everybody seems to be enjoying it. Even people, and there's a lot of people now, a lot of people online, a lot of people on the YouTube and whatnot, streamers out there that have not gotten into it. They've heard about it from their older brother. They heard about it from their mom. They heard about it from their dad. They heard about it from their older siblings, their sisters, their brothers, cousins, friends, whatnot. And they're finally getting into it for the first time, and they're enjoying it. I was afraid that Mass Effect, even in an upgraded fashion, would be aged to the point where for a lot of people just getting into it would be unplayable. And I'm very happy to say that it doesn't seem to be, for the most part, to be the case, that a lot of people that are just getting into it for the first time are really enjoying it.
Well, good. I mean, I hope that this kind of revitalizes interest in the series. I mean, I know it comes with all the DLC, and it's got a fresh coat of paint. And
I think there's one DLC, Pinnacle Station, that they couldn't get from BioWare because it was corrupted. So.
The code was no good.
Yeah.
What are our
And then the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer is not available.
Okay, I mean I kind of expected that to happen. But what are your thoughts? I mean, what are the reviewers saying about it? Is it getting high scores, or what's going on?
For the most part, it's getting really high scores. I think there's some caveats, mainly with Mass Effect 1, because they still wanted even some more tweaks to it. But there's only so much you can do, I think, in the limited amount of time that they went ahead and worked on this. I don't think that they had all the time in the world, like 2-3+ years to work on this. I think BioWare had a limited amount of time to go ahead and say, you know what, now's the time to go ahead and do it. We're going to go ahead and work on it. We're mainly going to go ahead and touch up Mass Effect 1 and focus our attention there. And I think it shows to bring the level of it up to almost the par where Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 are at. I think people that have yet to go into Mass Effect 2 and 3 for the most part, because this Mass Effect 1 is such a long game. But I think that people, for the most part, are enjoying their experiences. And the reviews, for the most part, have been very strong and been very supportive of it. And again, to me, what the issue was and concern was Mass Effect 1. And if people would say, oh, it's too old or too aged, but it looks like it's been freshened up enough for people's satisfaction to go ahead and delve into it.
All right. Hey, well, that's good to know, because I'm really excited to play. It's funny. Like I was complaining about not having any games to play, and then all of a sudden I've got too many to play. Like I still have Near Replicant.
Yes.
And I want to play it, but I keep having these things. So I'm I'm gonna finish Resident Evil, then I'll probably play Mass Effect 1, play Near Replicant, then play Mass Effect 2, then play whatever comes out next, and then Mass Effect 3. So I'll probably take my time and savor this Mass Effect trilogy as as the year goes on. Hopefully by the time I'm done with it, the Christmas game or the holiday gaming season will have started. But we'll see, man. I'm just excited to be able to dive back into that universe, because I have personally played the Mass Effect games probably 3 or 4 times each, and I have enjoyed every playthrough I have had with it.
Well, you and I have spoken about our love for Mass Effect. I mean, you can only see it from right behind me, where I've got all the Mass Effect displays that I kept from the store that I used to run in 2007, and you can see all the displays up behind me that still show my affection for the series. And I'm so glad that it came out. I'm so glad that it's getting the warm reception that it is. I'm so glad that it is getting the justification it deserves. And most importantly, I'm so glad that this reignites the flame and interest in the Mass Effect IP, and that will guide BioWare and also EA forward to make the right decisions on the new Mass Effect that's coming sometime in the future.
So what are the chances that next Monday show, we could get maybe some hands-on impression by you?
Oh, you'll have it. In fact, I'm going to be doing some streaming this week on our Twitch channel. Hopefully I can translate that also as well to our Facebook and YouTube channels as well. But yes, the Twitch channel at Pop Culture Cosmos will have some action this week, so look forward to that. And you can have some hands-on impressions from myself and maybe you as well.
Hey, hopefully we'll see what happens. I'm hoping to get through Resident Evil this week, so anything's possible.
What are your thoughts out there on Mass Effect Legendary Edition now that all 3 of this awesome trilogy are together in one bundle, up-resed, upgraded, revitalized for a new generation of consoles? Please share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, the dangers of trading cards. Also, some streaming information that has come over the wire that are very interesting that needs to be talked about. And what's the best Star Wars fan project ever? We're going to talk about that coming up after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford along with my good friend, Mr. Josh Effect Legendary Edition, or Josh Peterson, whichever one you want. That's okay. All right, my friend, I wanted to go ahead and get into it now in regards to what Target has done in recent times. As of now, it's still in place, but there is the fact that they just suspended in recent days sales for trading cards, various trading cards, from sports trading cards, but most importantly, the Pokemon, and also I think Magic the Gathering is included in that as well. because of some very violent confrontations that have happened about the hoarding of the whole marketplace, about how the value of trading cards, especially Pokemon and some of these trading cards as well, have risen so sharply since the pandemic is concerned. And before I hear your thoughts on it, I want to go ahead and play a little clip here, if you're listening on radio and also our podcast, of an interview I did with Vince Artulo from That Sports Card Show podcast. It's a great podcast you need to listen to. He already kind of foresaw this a couple months ago when we talked about it. So I want to play that clip right now. So Josh, you heard the thoughts of Vince Artulo. I want to hear your thoughts on this because it's kind of concerning. Walmart, it was up in the air whether or not they once I thought certain stores had pulled it as well, but now Walmart has said that for now that they're going ahead and selling it. But it's become a very interesting, intriguing, but also a possibly even dangerous situation in regards to buying these trading cards at retail.
Yeah, so the stuff going on in the news has been insane. You know, there's been shootings, there's been people fighting and brawling, there's been Target employees who have gotten hurt over this whole thing. It's one of those things like when I was a kid, Pokemon cards were popular. People would line up outside the store to get them, but nobody ever got violent over it. But here's the big difference between then and now. Back then, it was kids wanting trading cards. Now it's adults, it's scalpers, and this whole scalping culture is absolutely disgusting. And I think that a lot of these people who are doing this I'm going to hot take, but they should be ashamed of themselves because you're taking things that kids like to have. Kids can't have these things now. These things that were made for kids and they're a game for kids. Kids can't have them because you have these adults taking them and selling them for a price that's way marked up on the internet. And
you're talking about the Pokemon cards and the Magic the Gathering cards, correct?
Right. And it's disgusting, and you have you have these adults who want to turn a profit on these items that are meant for, well, I mean, I know there's adults that play it too. So it's if you're buying things for the sake of scalping them on eBay, then this is kind of disgusting behavior because now you're dehumanizing people over trying to get these cards. You have people fighting. You have you're hurting Target and Walmart employees. It's got to the point where these stores are scared to sell these items anymore.
And these are items that for years was just right there next to the checkout counter. There would be rows of different trading cards, sports cards, novelty cards, and they would just be sitting there and you just walk right by them. And for years people would just ignore them. I think Vince said it best, when he was talking about how for so many years people would talk about these throwaway cards from the early 90s and mid 90s, and nobody realized that they might have had something valuable on their hands. And, I know with the sports cards, it's all about trying to collect the rookie cards for the rookie players. So that's what you're basically trying to go ahead and get these cards for, or these card sets for. And that's always been something that there's been a certain amount of collectors. Now that the market has risen, there's a lot of even more collectors on it. So it's become big business. I get that. And now that's evolving into NFTs and a whole 9 yards with that as far as the digital age. But with, like you said, Magic the Gathering and the Pokemon cards, I mean, I bought Pokemon cards for my daughter, and this was just for fun because she wanted to have them and collect them, and just keep them because she's so interested in Pokemon. But it's now becoming, do I have to go next time she wants to go ahead and have me buy some more, be fend off 2, 3, 4 people in order to buy just a set that she just wants to open up and have for fun?
Yeah, well, and you had mentioned collectors. It's not, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts where people are talking about this and reading a lot of articles. It's not collectors out there waiting for this stuff. It's people scalping it. You hear stories where someone went there.
Well, I mean, a lot of these collectors are doing the same thing. That's what they're doing. They're reselling, buying, and a lot of these collectors now have turned into individuals that are going to turn a quick profit as well.
Yeah, and I don't think that kind of behaviors I mean, I guess if you're civil about it, that's fine. But if you're one of these people who are causing fights, that's kind of disgusting behavior, especially for someone who isn't going to keep them. Somebody who is going to make it so a kid who actually wants to play with Pokemon, or an adult who actually wants to play with Pokemon cards, has to pay a huge markup because they can't get them just by going to the store anymore. Like,
Yeah, and not just the the specialized ones I know that everybody wants, but some of these kids just want common ones just to play with, just to have, just to collect.
Yeah, and because one day all these places will open again, and people start having Magic the Gathering contests and Pokemon contests, and these people won't be able to get these cards anymore because these people who are these scalpers have taken them and made it so they're hard to get. And in doing so, the disgusting thing about it also is that they're driving the value of it up. You can't get them at Target or Walmart anymore. So now you're going to have to go on eBay or Amazon or wherever and buy them from private sellers. And, we have an anime store up the street from us, and they have Pokemon cards there. But
do they have a security guard right there next to them?
No, they don't. We live in a very small town, so we're not like in danger of that becoming an issue. But
yet.
But and like, again, you've heard my thoughts on scalpers, especially with like gaming consoles too. Like you're seeing that happen. Like you go on eBay, you have these people. There's nobody selling just a single console. You look at all the pictures, it's just someone who bought like 20 of them, and they just are sitting in like their harem of PlayStations and Xboxes. And this market there's always been a market for scalping, but it's just gotten so bad thanks to the pandemic and the YouTubers and people who like are on, this might sound bad, but a lot of people who are they're not in work anymore, or they're working from home, or they're in unemployment, whatever their situation is, they have time to go and wait outside stores when it opens, and they're looking to make a little extra cash. So it's just all the circumstances are just right for something like this to happen. And to Vince's point, when you have these things that are like you're making a limited number of certain things, it's going to create a collectors are going to be looking for them. And Pokemon cards, like I didn't think it would ever happen, but I didn't think it's going to happen again, but here we are. This is like the 90s all over again, except people are getting incredibly violent about it. But let me ask you this, though. How much of this do you think is thanks to streamers? You have people like Post Malone talking about Magic the Gathering, and you have Logan, whatever his face is, opening like a pack of 1990s Pokemon cards online or something. How much do you think is the pandemic to blame, and how much do you think YouTubers are to blame for this?
I don't know how much, because we love to blame the pandemic on everything.
Right.
But I know that the streaming and social media aspect of it, that started already back in before, like 2018, 2019, 2017, 2016, 2015. I mean, you can go back far as you want on that in regards to social media, how it's developed over the previous decade, and see the kind of influence it has. I think that has the biggest influence on so many different aspects of our life. And I think the value of these trading cards, whether it's sports cards, Pokemon cards, Magic cards, or any other novelty cards, I think that is more to do with the social media aspect and the fact that the internet has created this marketplace where you can buy and sell things so much easier, but you can also have interests in things so much easier. It's not where you back in the 70s or 80s where, I really like Pokemon cards, but if nobody has them in your neck of the woods, you're pretty much out of luck unless you like mail order stuff. Now you can easily, within the span of a few seconds, go onto Amazon or eBay and buy something if you have the money for it. And that just drives up the price more and more. And I think technology and our society have more to do with all these things that are going up in price in regards to the trading cards than necessarily the pandemic is concerned. Because the pandemic, you can relate to a lot of things as far as, let's say the price rose on all this stuff because of manufacturing issues, because of distribution issues. That you can blame on the pandemic. Those kind of things are easily, you can relate to that. But when it comes to just the price shooting high on something that is normally out in a normal variety and a normal number that it normally comes out, like it was coming out in 2019 and 2018, then that to me spells that it's more a societal or
Yeah.
more of an access issue that's creating this drive up. The pandemic, in theory, manufacturing and scarcity should be more prevalent in this. With the trading card industry, it doesn't sound like it's a scarcity issue. It just sounds like a whole lot more people want it.
Yeah, yeah, and again, like, yeah, I don't directly blame the pandemic, but I think that in the aftermath of the pandemic, and these circumstances have been created that are allowing, that have everything kind of came together in the proper way for something like this to happen. Like, it's people looking to make a little extra money, or people have extra time on their hands to go out and make Target or Walmart employees fear for their lives. It's just such a weird time we're living in, and I hope that people who are actually like into Pokemon cards, like, I hope that they're still able to get them and have fun with them. And I guess if people are out there like scalping them, putting them up on eBay, I hope that we get to the point where, like, the value of them, people just don't pay any mind to them. Just don't buy things from scalpers. As bad as you want it, don't buy it, until it's something you can get in like a Pokemon pack or something. But that being said, do you I just completely forgot what I was going to say. The thought was there and it just went.
Well, I have a whole bunch of trading cards from the 90s, and I'm currently in the process of selling quite a few off because the market now is ripe for them. And frankly, I forgot about it so many years because they were so undervalued that I just thought, okay, they're next to worthless. Some of them actually now have value, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe now's a good time to sell them off. But this is stuff I collected in the 90s. Right. I'm not going out right now to a Walmart or Target, and like Vince said, people scout that and they sit there at 6 o'clock in the morning waiting for Target or Walmart to open just so they can be among the first to buy these packs, and not for their kids but for themselves so they can resell it. So I mean, I'm not going out to like that. For me, it's just I want to sell off some old stuff because I know the market is ripe for it.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I have old basketball cards I'm trying to get rid of just because it takes up space and I don't collect anymore. So maybe
is it hoops, tops, upper deck?
It's a mixture. I got like hoops, I got tops, I've got remember the Tops used to make those Ovation cards? Like, I got a bunch of those. So I'm I might sit down and put some stuff up on eBay this weekend, but like, those aren't going for that much. So I just like hope that they end up with a collector who actually, wants them. So this was going to be my question here. Do you think that the scarcity created, not scarcity, but like the limited number of things printed by these card companies, do you think that has anything, that if they made things more, or I guess more widely available, that we wouldn't have situations like this happening?
Well, that's the one thing. I mean, if a company says I'm going to produce this in a limited amount, then that's going to drive up the price and interest. If it was because of the pandemic that they could not produce as much as they'd like, then that's something that's in regards to the condition of the world at that time. That's something that was out of their hands. But if something where they said, this Pokemon set is only going to be 1,500 of them, or this Pokemon card or this Magic the Gathering card is only going to be 100 of them that you have to find within these sets, with these packs, that's something that they created. That's something that's been artificially created, and that someone in a boardroom said, this is what we're going to do. That's something different, and that's them knowing that they've created that type of demand. Yeah. As opposed to what maybe, let's say, like, again, the pandemic, where they just couldn't manufacture enough to go ahead and produce. That makes sense. I just like, I think that making limited numbers of things has kind of been the flesh and blood of this, this industry. The fact that it creates collectibles, that's the whole thing with the NFTs. There's only one of them. I guess it just depends on like what lengths are you willing to go to get these things, and I think that's a question we all need to ask ourselves. What are your thoughts out there on the controversy with the trading card sales at various retailers like Target, Walmart, and other places? It's becoming to the point where the trading card industry is becoming a very dangerous and even violent, prospect to consider when you go ahead and start buying into trading cards. Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, regular sports cards, and novelty cards of that like. So we want to hear your thoughts on how dangerous it's becoming the trading card industry and how dangerous it's becoming. We want to hear your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, I cannot thank you enough as always for being part of today's show. But just a few more topics before we head on out. Wanted to go ahead and touch on some streaming news that came through the wire right around this weekend. One is that on their latest Disney investors call, Disney reported that they are now up to 103 million subscribers, which again, we would think would be great. And the fact that Falcon and Winter Soldier is such a big hit. In fact, Nielsen says that some of the episodes have reached the top of the streaming market. And WandaVision is still coming off that as far as the success there. But analysts and Wall Street had projected the growth of Disney Plus to be at 109 million. And 6 million is quite a difference as far as what was projected and what actually is. So I want to ask you, Disney Plus has seen a extremely high growth in its first year plus of existence. It now seems to be slowing down. Is this a problem for Disney?
So that's a great question, actually. I have not, ever since Falcon and Winter Soldier, like I have not really gone back to Disney Plus for anything. So, I'm sure when Mandalorian comes back on, that those subscription numbers will probably go back up or whatever. Marvel.
The Bad Batch is not bringing anybody in.
Yeah, I heard that the Bad Batch was not actually that great. So I'm, just reading the reviews on it. It's like the first episode.
I think people are waiting for Loki.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's just they need the right things to bring them in. I think what really kills them, like I will always keep my HBO Max subscription open because when a new movie comes out, I don't have to pay extra to watch it. With Disney, I think what really slows them down or kind of ruins momentum for them is the fact that a new movie comes out, you have to pay $30 to watch it. And I think that's why like Soul didn't do that great and Raya the Last Dragon didn't do that.
Well, Soul actually did really good on Disney Plus.
Was it part of Premier Access or was it?
No, it was free,
okay,
and it did huge numbers over the holiday season and January for them. Raya is a different story, but
so compare and contrast the two, though. Like, doesn't that make sense? Like you put this movie out and people can actually watch it versus paying $30 to watch it.
But then again, the concept of saving money, like you talked about before, where you spend over upwards of and even beyond $100 to go to the movies. And you're getting it at a discounted rate, $30 for you and the entire family to sit down. That doesn't seem to be a bad trade-off. And a lot of people, I think, on the first time around with Mulan, there's a reason why Disney's still doing it. And Mulan, there must have been a great deal of success with it, with this $30 Premier Access for them to continue this on certain films. Like the Jungle Cruise, that's going to have it. Mm-hmm. Whereas Shang-Chi and also Free Guy, those movies are just going straight with a 45-day window in the theaters before they hit Disney Plus.
Yeah, I saw that. That's kind of interesting or cool, I guess. Okay, so I think it all like depends on if there's just so many outside circumstances that kind of predict how this is going to go down. Like for right now, Raya and the Last Dragon came out before people had extra money or from their the COVID relief checks, right? So people were like spending more money after those checks came in.
So this is here in the States.
This is here in the States, yeah. So I guess it all like, and there's a lot of people who still aren't working, so their money is a little more scarce for some people or harder to come by. So you have people, I think as people are not working, they've become a little bit more like conscious of how much they're spending. So I think that like a movie like Raya and the Last Dragon, like, oh, hey, I mean, I could pay $30 to watch this, even if it would save me money from going to the movie theaters, but I could also wait, 45 days to watch it for free. So, I think that when Black Widow comes out, I don't think it'll suffer from that problem just because it's such a high profile film. But I guess it just depends on the time and the circumstances of the people there. But that's again, like HBO Max has no circumstances, right? You pay this $12 a month and you get access to everything. Disney Plus, I guess they're kind of like gambling on the fact that people will want to pay extra money to watch some of these things in a time where people aren't really like spending a lot of extra money.
But HBO Max is going to be concerned because next year, when they're not doing the day and date for their movies, that's going to be a concern because you've weaned all these people like yourself on it's going to be a movie release day and date in the theaters and HBO Max. I'm really excited for that. Whereas next year, you have to wait for the theatrical window to go ahead and subside before you'll see it on HBO Max. So be prepared for that come 2022.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated. I know we talk about this a lot, but I'm just so fascinated by, I guess, the psychology behind all this. And I am really excited to see like when HBO when their contracts with Legendary and all these other filmmakers expire come 2023, like what's gonna happen.
Well, I'm concerned for Disney Plus because WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier were both highly sought after material, and they were heavily publicized as far as for advertisements, and they still weren't enough to have Disney Plus meet investors' expectations on what the subscriber count should be. So I think Disney should be concerned. I know Loki is something we're interested in, but I'm not sure if it's going to bring in new viewers. I think it's going to be a situation where you're going to have a lot of high profile stuff come in and out on an each and every week basis before you get people to go ahead in mass numbers, go ahead and subscribe or become new subscribers to Disney Plus. So that's something I think Disney should be concerned about. I know I know the theme park business is going once again for them in limited fashion. So I think that's something brighter for them as a whole for a company. But I do think that they need to be concerned about what's going on with Disney Plus.
Well, and again, like the nature of these streaming services is the fact that people are dropping in and out of them. People do that with Netflix, they do that with Hulu, they do that with HBO Max, they do that with Disney Plus, I'm sure. So for Disney Plus, I think what they need to focus on is like, how can we retain people instead of having them come in and out? Because how many of those new subscribers are people who have canceled before and now are re-upping? There's no, they don't really talk about that a lot. So the number could possibly be a lot lower than what they're saying it is. So, this is just the nature of the beast, and it's going to be, as people start going back out into public and going to the movie theaters, it's just going to be interesting to see what happens to all these numbers for all these streaming services.
Should Disney Plus be concerned about its current subscriber base, and what do you see for the growth of that streaming platform? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, you mentioned HBO Max, and we both did during that conversation. But before we head on out, my friend, real quick, there are heavy rumors, and these are on respected sites like CNN and Deadline and a lot of other places that are talking about a possible merger that's being talked about over this past weekend that might be announced as early as Monday. When you hear this, about the Discovery network of shows, channels, etc., possibly merging with Warner AT&T, which Warner has everything from TNT to HBO and that entire family, which would include HBO Max. So maybe that would include, if they merged, the libraries of Discovery Plus with all their stuff that they do, I think with the Food Network and all the stuff they do with the Discovery and the Home Improvement and all that. And then you have also as well everything from HBO Max. If this happens and that becomes one, what will that do to the streaming marketplace before we head on out?
I don't know. Like it seems like a lot of these there are with so many streaming outlets out there, like there is, you're creating more of a possibility for a monopoly. And at what point does the the Federal Trade Commission get involved in something like this? I know they were, when Disney purchased Marvel and then they purchased Lucasfilm, I know, and then Fox, like I know that they were very on the fence about all that. So
yeah, they had to sell off their sports networks.
So at what point does the Federal Trade Commission get involved here, and then we start seeing this whole streaming industry become more regulated? And I don't know, like I just don't see good things should that happen.
But as a streaming entity, if Discovery and HBO Max were to combine, a possibility of that, what would be your thoughts?
It would be interesting. I mean, would the existing services be merged into one? Would people get charged more? Would they get charged less? Like, how would that
Oh, it's
play
always
out?
more, man. Always more.
Always more. Yeah. I mean, on the bright side, it would create one less like service that people have to subscribe to. You know, if you can go from having 8 to having 7 streaming services. So I don't know. It's just, I guess it all depends on what it offers and what lengths people are going to be willing to go to have it.
For me, it would be very interesting to see all that live or content that was, the real life content that they make at Discovery, all the nature stuff, all the food stuff, all the home improvement, all the stuff on Discovery, all the mystery stuff that they do, all those things added into the the stuff that they do on HBO Max, which HBO Max mostly does dramas, mostly does superhero stuff, mostly does things that are not real. Basically, all this infusion of reality into a Hollywood studio format, I think would be a great combination. It would make it very well rounded, and I think it would become a viable contender to the Netflixes and Disney Pluses and Amazon Primes of the world. And I really think that people would need to take note if that happens.
Yeah. I mean, this would spell trouble for some of the other streaming services out there, and but then again, would it though? I mean, I guess like with the streaming services, it all depends on who has the content that people want to watch. Just because you're merging 2 platforms together or 3 platforms, it doesn't mean that people are necessarily going to want to go to that unless you have something that they want to see.
What are your thoughts out there on a possible, and this is a possible as our point in recording right now, as we're recording right now, it's a possible merger between Warner AT&T, which owns HBO Max, TNT, et cetera, with the Discovery network, which includes Discovery and all of its other subsidiary networks. If they combine together and a streaming outlet with all those combined forces came together, would that how much would that fare with you as far as a premium streaming outlet? Would that be the most watched streaming outlet for you? Please share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. Again, thank you so much for joining me as always. I appreciate everybody watching and listening to us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But before we head on out, my friend, some Star Wars fan service came by the YouTube recently as the show Bucketheads, or the series Bucketheads, got started. I flipped that to you because it actually just showed up on my YouTube, suggestions, and I thought I'd check it out. And for me, Star Wars fan projects over the years have been very hit or very miss. I thought, oh, this is pretty good. They put a lot of money into it. And then you look at others and then mine, and they're like, they at least was a nice try. It was a nice effort, and it's a devotion to the series. I want to hear your thoughts. If you got a chance to see Bucketheads, the series, episode 1 that just came out, if you think that stands up because to me, I think if Disney Plus took a look at it, they could actually use that and develop it into something that people would want to watch.
Yeah, so I watched it, and I gotta say, like, the cinematography is beautiful. Like the color palettes they use, the dark color palettes are really cool. It's reminiscent of what Gareth Edwards did in Rogue One. Like I thought that was really cool.
And also Return of the Jedi, because it has a lot of action going on in Endor.
Yeah, and just like you gotta appreciate like the rotoscoping that was done in that, making the lasers fly through and superimposing things in the background, having things move, the droids and all that. Like that was really cool. This had to have had a pretty big budget, and it has a soundtrack, it has special effects, it has different voice acting. Like they probably went to some great lengths to make something like this. So my thoughts about maybe Disney taking a look. Do you think that they'd be welcoming to something like that? Because I know Warner Brothers has repeatedly shut down Harry Potter fan projects. Do you think that Disney would like pull a Nintendo and say like, "Hey, stop doing this, or we're literally going to sue you until you have nothing left"?
I don't know how they can, my friend, because it specifically states that this is not for profit, but they conveniently have a Patreon you can support.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I don't know how they can really stop it on that pretext, because there are dozens and dozens and dozens of Star Wars fan projects that have popped up on YouTube over the past decade, which you know that they're making money on just by the fact you're watching it on YouTube as well. So
Yeah.
for me, I think that they, instead of not embracing it, I think they talk to the people who are responsible and get them involved in making more content, because that's something you and I have talked about Disney Plus. You mentioned yourself, since Falcon and Winter Soldier, you've dropped Disney Plus like a bad habit. Guess what? Same here. Since Falcon and Winter Soldier, I've dropped Disney Plus like a bad habit. I've not been really catching up with the Bad Batch outside of episode 1. I need to catch up with that, but I know they're up to episode 5, so I'm going to have to binge it at some point, but I might wait until June before doing so when Loki's around. So for me, it's something that they need constant influx of content at Disney Plus. In fact, like Netflix. Netflix throws out stuff, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. They're just going to throw stuff at you. I think Disney Plus needs to look at this and say, you know what? If they're able, on the budgets that they can go ahead and make these, and we just throw a little bit of cash their way, they can really make something pretty decent to watch that people would enjoy. And I really think that they should go ahead and embrace these Star Wars fan projects, at least the best of them, and promote it on their own channel.
Yeah, and I mean that's a cool thing too, is the fact that like you can, if Disney were to do something like that, they could have minimal involvement and have have a product turned out in less than the time it probably takes to make an episode of The Mandalorian, because with all these studio projects, you have all the voices involved. Everyone has to agree or disagree on what the movie is. With this, there's just some rad people who got together and made something. Like there's no I guess corporate red tape to go through.
Josh, I'm waiting for your Star Wars fan project. I'm waiting to go ahead and be a part of that.
I got to be inspired again. So as soon as Star Wars shows me something that I can get behind again, maybe we'll talk about it.
Certainly wasn't the last It certainly wasn't the last Skywalker. That's for sure.
You're telling me. What movie was that?
Exactly. What are your thoughts out there on what for you is the best Star Wars fan project you have ever seen? We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've seen Bucketheads, which is now available on YouTube, I think the episode 1 is really good. There's a movie that was made a couple years ago in Bucketheads, which is okay, but I really think episode 1 takes it up even further. What is the best Star Wars fan project? Is it Bucketheads? Is it something else? Please share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, it's been a great episode talking Resident Evil, Mass Effect, Star Wars. We're talking streaming. We're talking trading card controversy. Any last thoughts on the way out?
No, I mean, if you have ever if you've been involved in these situations lately with the trading cards, like I would honestly love to hear a story. Like I want to get it straight from the source. If you've been waiting outside Target and you saw someone throw a shopping cart at a Target employee, like I want to know about it. So send us an email, tell us your stories, and I need to understand the madness a little better. So popculturecosmos@yahoo.com.
There you go. He wants to hear all the little gossip that's going on. But please, if you're out there in the trading card world and you're going into this full blast, please be safe. Please be careful. And please let us know your thoughts on this anytime right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great